of mine. Today is truly an introductory session. So it's designed for people who are just getting started studying for their PMP exam. If you're testing this week, you may find today's session a little slow. It truly is I have so many new people. I wanted to do an introductory session. If you're brand new and you have your PMBOK guide with you, you may find it advantageous to have the PMBOK guide open to page 25. This is what we call table 1-4. So we're going to start with the process group, move to the knowledge areas, and then move to the processes. Much of what we talk about today is coming directly from table 1-4. That would be page 25 of the PMBOK guide. Some people say we need to memorize this page. I really don't like the word memorize. When we first start studying this page, it will feel like memorization. Then as we start studying, the more we study, the easier this page will be, because it will be much less about memorization and much more about understanding. So if you've never been on one of my calls before, almost all of my slides today are going to be sample questions. You may say, that's not fair. You need to teach before you ask questions. I find, certainly with this material today, we learn more through sample questions. So let's look at the first question. The 49 project management processes are grouped into how many process groups? So if you're looking at the PMBOK guide, page 25, look across the top row. That's where we see process groups. So look across the top. So we're looking for how many process groups there are. Answer A, 49, that's how many processes there are. B, 47 is a made-up number. It has no meaning. C, 10. 10 is wrong. You tell me, what are there 10 of? There's not 10 process groups. There's 10. And you see people typing KA. KA is for knowledge areas. So if you're using the PMBOK guide and you look down that left column, you see the 10 knowledge areas. So how many process groups are there? There's 5 process groups. You need to memorize that for the exam. You need to know that there's 5 process groups. I would hope by the time you take the exam, you would have done enough studying that you don't think about memorizing. It's more, how many fingers do you have on your right hand? Well, I have 5 fingers. I don't have to memorize that. Okay. Let's move on to another question. Initiating is A. I'll give you a minute to think about it and then go ahead, type your answer into the chat area. Now, if you're using the PMBOK guide, page 25, the way to figure this out is to find the word initiating. So if you're on page 25, towards the top left, you see the box that says initiating process group. So initiating is a process group. So someone tell me, or type into the chat for the group, what's my trick? How do you know something is or isn't a process group? At least what's one thing you're looking for? Okay, great. And so I see lots of people are typing. Okay. All process groups end with ing. So again, all process groups end with ing. It doesn't mean everything that ends with ing is a process group. But if something doesn't end with ing, then it is not a process group. So initiating is a process group. So think about, and maybe you don't need to type all of them, but into the chat area, name some of the other process groups. So name some of the other process groups. Okay. So planning, monitoring and controlling. There's two more, executing, and one more, closing. Great, so those are the process groups. Let's go on to the next question. The process group concerned with obtaining authorization to start a project or phase is, so whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. Great. So the question is looking for a process group. How do you know that concerned with obtaining authorization to start a project or phase? How do you know answer A must be wrong? How do you know integration must be wrong? Okay, great. Integration must be wrong because integration is not a process group. And you see right in the question that we're looking for a process group. Answer A, integration is a knowledge area, so it must be wrong. And then B, C, and D are process groups. Even if you've done no studying, which word probably is about starting something, it would be B, initiating. This one's a little harder. The process group concerned with managing stakeholder expectations is, whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. So when I look at the question, I see I'm looking for a, oops. When I look at the question, I see I'm looking for a process group. If I'm looking for a process group, what two answers must be wrong if I'm looking for a process group? Everyone agree answer A is not a process group and answer D is not a process group? So the only answers that could be right so far are B and C. And then if I go back to the question, what's another key word in the question? Sri already told us it's the word managing. When we see the word managing, is managing about executing or is managing about monitoring and controlling? In general, when we see the word managing, we're talking about executing. So that's a takeaway from this question. In general, when we see manage or managing, we're talking about an executing process. When we see the word checking or reviewing, we're talking about a monitoring and controlling process. If this is your first session with me, you're starting to see that I talk about how to get a question right because we know the right answer, but also how to get a question right because we know the wrong answer. The 49 project management processes are grouped into how many knowledge areas? Whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. So hopefully this is an easy question. We're looking to see how many knowledge areas. Okay. 49 is the number of processes. 47 is a made-up number. Now we're left with 10 and 5. Both of these numbers are important. There's 10 knowledge areas. There's 5 process groups. If you go to page 25 and you skim the left-hand column, integration, scope, schedule, you see the 10 knowledge areas. For those of you that used to study with a different PMBOK guide, notice some of the knowledge areas have been renamed. So schedule is a new name, resource is a new name, and there's meaning behind that. Integration management is A. And so whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. So integration management is not a process group or a process or a tool and technique. Integration management is a knowledge area. Some of you may be asking right now, are the questions on the exam this easy? The answer is absolutely not. These questions today are not representative of the PMP exam. But if we don't know the answers to these questions, then we won't get the real questions right. So we've got to have this basic knowledge first. So integration management is a knowledge area. Okay. The knowledge area that focuses on the project team is, whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. So first, when I look at the question, I see that I'm looking for a knowledge area. Since I'm looking for a knowledge area, what answer must be wrong? Okay, so from Shri, we know answer B must be wrong. Executing is a process group, not a knowledge area. So now we're left with 3, and it says that focuses on the project team. Answer A, stakeholder management. What does stakeholder management focus on? Stakeholder management focuses on stakeholders. Okay. Are team members stakeholders? A question, yes or no, are team members stakeholders? Okay. The answer is yes. So a stakeholder is anyone who can affect or be affected by the project. Team members are stakeholders, but there's lots of stakeholders who are not team members. So I'm hoping there's an answer better than A. Let's go to C, procurement management. What does procurement management focus on? Okay, so procurement, vendors, you might say sellers, you might say purchasing or buying. Okay. When we go through procurement and we bring on contractors, Okay. Might contractors be team members? Might contractors be team members? Okay. The answer is yes, but still I'm hoping there's a better answer. When we go to answer D, resource management, what does resource management focus on? So D, resource management, what does resource management focus on? It focuses on the people doing the work. And what else? It focuses on the people doing the work. And what else does it focus on? Great, all the other resources needed, or we might say physical resources, including material, equipment. So resource management is about managing team members, but also it's about any other resources we might need. PMI usually calls it physical resources, such as equipment, material, supplies, facilities. So great. The knowledge area that focuses on continuous process improvement is? Go ahead, type your answer when you're ready. Since the question is asking about a knowledge area, what answer must be wrong? Oops. So answer B must be wrong because B is not a knowledge area. The phrase continuous process improvement, it's probably quality management. Integration focuses on integrating all the other processes together. We already said resource management was about people doing the work and also about physical resources. Quality management is the best answer here. The process that ensures the physical resources assigned and allocated to the project are available as planned is? Whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. So I'm looking, I could be wrong, but I think everyone who has answered the question has gotten the question wrong. So try again. B is not the best answer. Okay. So Judith made a great comment. It's already planned, so it can't be B. Some of us are selecting answer A. How do you know answer A must be wrong? Because the question says the process. Is answer A process? Okay. Is answer A process? No, answer A is a knowledge area. Bethany, the answer to your question is no. And I'll explain just in a second. When I continue in the question is talking about physical resources. So if it's talking about physical resources, what answer must be wrong? So D must be wrong because managed team is only about people. So now we are left with B and C, plan resource management and control resources. Someone already described, Judith in the chat area stated it's already planned, so it can't be. The process that ensures is a key word here, that the resources allocated are available as planned. Plan resource management is only about planning, making sure they're really available would be control resources. Do you see how I went about eliminating the wrong answers here? A is wrong because resource management is a knowledge area. B is wrong because they're already planned, the as planned. So if they wanted answer B, they would be talking about a process that describes how. Okay, so if they wanted answer B, it would a process that defines how to estimate, acquire, manage, utilize resources. D, managed team is wrong because D, managed team is only about people, not about physical resources. So if today is the first day you're opening the PMBOK guide, I would hope that at least you knew answer A is wrong. If you've been thinking of knowledge, these processes can be used into variation. Process that includes tracking team member performance. So whenever I search for a test, which answer must be wrong because for a process must be wrong. It's wrong, that's a area. It says or do you think that's managed team? What would you say is the right answer now? Great, I would agree. The right answer here is going to be D. On the exam, it doesn't matter if you get a question right because you knew the right answer, or if you get a question right because you knew the other answers were wrong. The process that defines how we will acquire team members and physical resources is, go ahead, type your answer into the chat. I'm seeing mostly D's, but some B's. When I go to the question, I'm looking for a process. So which answer must be wrong because I'm looking for a process? A must be wrong. Resource management is a knowledge area. When I go to the question, I feel a key word is the word how. Usually, not always, but usually when we see the word how, what do we think about? The what describes how. So great from Terry and others. Usually when we see the word how, we think about plan. We think about a plan. So the process that defines how, I'm thinking it's going to be plan resource management, but I keep going, how we will acquire team members. So the process has to relate to team members. Which answer does not relate to team members? So which answer is wrong because it doesn't relate to team members? C. But also the question says, and physical resources. Okay. Okay. We're left with B and D. When I think about acquire team is about people, not about physical resources. So B is out. What's the only answer that's left? The only answer that's left is D. Okay. So again, it's this word plan and the word how. So let's keep going. Monitoring and controlling is a so hopefully this is an easier one. In the question, I see ing. Monitoring and controlling is a process group. Everyone okay with that one? Hopefully that's a review. That's easy. Monitor and control project work is a, even if you don't know the right answer, do you know, think about which ones can you eliminate? So monitor and control project work. It's not a process group because it doesn't end in ing. Monitor and control project work is a process. And there's 49 processes. It's not a tool and technique. We might get to one sample question on tools and techniques. It's not a knowledge area. Knowledge areas include integration management, scope management, schedule management, cost management. Let's do another one. Brainstorming is a, great, brainstorming is not a process group. And I was hoping no one would get tricked here, even though it ends in ing. Not everything that ends in ing is a process group. It's not a process. It's not a knowledge area. Brainstorming is a tool and technique. So now these questions, some of you may need to look at page 25 to help you get these questions right. Define activities is a process of, and as I skim the answers, they're asking what process group is it part of and what knowledge area is it part of. So I would approach this question by first asking, do I know what process group it's part of? And then I'd eliminate wrong answers. And then I'd ask, do I know what knowledge area it's part of? So when you're ready, go ahead, type your answer into the chat area. So I'm seeing mostly Ds. When you think about define activities, what process group will that be part of? So Sri, what process group? It will be part of planning, yes, which means not executing, not initiating. If one phrase in an answer is wrong, then the whole answer is eliminated. So I've eliminated answer B, I've eliminated answer C. So now is define activities part of scope or is it part of schedule? So if you have a PMBOK guide in front of you, go across the scope row, you notice you see define scope, to create WBS, but you don't see define activities. Define activities is a planning process and a schedule knowledge area process. So in define activities, we take the work breakdown structure and we look at the lowest level, we look at the work packages, and we turn those work packages into activities. Sorry, my computer stopped for a minute. Manage team is a process of. Whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat area. Okay. So Shri told us the trick I would use here. When I see the word manage, so when you see the word manage, what process group are we probably in? When we see manage, we're probably in the executing process group. When you see the word team, what knowledge area are we probably in? So when you see the word team, we're probably in the resource knowledge area. So manage team, it's not planning, it's not initiating, it's not planning. Okay, how I went about this one? Again, you might be asking the question, is this question representative of the exam? And the answer is no. This question is too easy to represent the exam. Though you could get a scenario question where you know the right answer needs to be executing and it needs to be part of the resource knowledge area. And thus the right answer would be manage team. But the way this question is written, it's too simple for the PMP exam. Validate scope is a process of. So whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat. It looks like most people, though not everyone, is getting the question right. For me, when I look at the question, I see the word scope. So if I see the word scope, it means it's part of the scope knowledge area, which tells me answer B must be wrong because of the word quality. It tells me C must be wrong because of the word integration. So now I'm left with A and D. Think about where you work and think about what validate means. Though it may not mean the exact same thing in the PMBOK guide, it's probably something close. Validate scope is where the customer reviews the deliverables to decide if they're going to accept those deliverables or not. So validate scope is about the customer accepting deliverables. That's not a planning process. It's a monitoring and controlling process. Even if you didn't know the right answer was D, I'm hoping you were able to eliminate B and C because of the word scope in the question and the word quality or the word integration in the answer. Collect requirements is a process of. Whenever you're ready, type your answer into the chat area. When I think collect requirements, I think in my real work, and I should have said this earlier, always assume traditional project management, never assume agile unless the question says agile. So traditional project management, when do I collect requirements? I do it early on as part of planning. So I look at the planning process group and scope management. Yes, I relate collect requirements to scope. So I like A. B, executing. I know B is wrong because executing is too late. Quality, maybe, but executing is too late. So B must be wrong. Closing must be wrong. Monitoring and controlling is too late. Even though I like the scope management knowledge area, monitoring and controlling is too late. So it would be A. Identify stakeholders is a process of. When I look at this, I see the word stakeholders in the question. I know B must be wrong because of the word quality. I know C must be wrong because of the word integration. So I'm left with A and D. Do I think it's part of planning or part of initiating? I think it's part of initiating because identify stakeholders is one of the first things I do on the project. So answer D, initiating process with stakeholder knowledge area. I'm switching gears with a few questions. Many documents need to be created for a project. From the list below, which one is created first? When I get a question that asks first and it doesn't tell me really anything else, I know I need to contrast the answers to each other. So A and B, the scope statement versus the charter. The scope statement is developed during planning. It's when the team describes what's in and out of scope. The charter is created during initiating. and it describes the project objectives. Well, I need a charter before I can create a scope statement. So B is better than A. The charter versus the quality management plan. I need a charter way before the quality management plan, and I need it way before the work breakdown structure. So the charter would be the best answer here. You, and that should be and, so that's a typo, I apologize. You and your core, I'll get that fixed. You and your core team have just completed building the project schedule. What are you likely to do next? So it says we have a schedule, and then what are we likely to do next? Okay. So we've built the schedule. What's likely to occur next? Okay, answer A, control schedule. Could that come after building the schedule? Could we control it? So could A come after the question? So I would say A is a possible answer, but A is part of monitoring and controlling. So it comes much later, but A is possible. Let's go to B, create the WBS. Which one occurs first, building the schedule or creating the WBS? Creating the WBS is about scope. Building the schedule is about schedule. So which one comes first? Create WBS comes before building the schedule. So I know create WBS. Oops, sorry about that. I know create WBS must be wrong. Direct and manage project work, that's an executing process. So does C come after building a schedule? So C does come after building a schedule, so C might be right. Let's go to D, define activities. Do we define the activities before or after we build the schedule? We define the activities before. Which tells me D must be wrong. Again, if today's your first day studying, you might just want to sit back and listen on this. So B and D come before we build the schedule, so they must be wrong. The question is asking what am I likely to do next? Both A and C come after building a schedule, but which would occur first, C or A? Do we do the work first or do we control the work first? So the question is in a planning process, C is in an executing process, D is a monitoring and controlling process. So which one would come next after building the schedule? It would be C. So don't get tripped up because C doesn't have the word schedule in it. Direct and manage project work includes doing the work following the schedule. So most people would get this question wrong on the exam. Most people would select A, which is absolutely wrong. We've got to do the work before we can control the schedule. Your team is conducting a project review. It's been determined that your actual progress is 10 weeks behind the schedule baseline. You must decide if you should fast track or crash the schedule. What are you likely to do next? So this question is representative of the exam, and so is the last one. So I'll give you a minute to think about it. Well, it looks like we're seeing multiple C's. Okay. It says we're doing a project review, which means we're in the monitoring and controlling process group. Your actual progress is 10 weeks behind the schedule baseline. You must decide if you should fast track or crash. What should you do next? How do you know answer A is wrong? Develop schedule. So how do you know A must be wrong? Develop schedule. Okay, so great. We're in monitoring and controlling, and we know that we're behind schedule. If we know we're behind schedule, it means we must already have a schedule. So A is wrong. B, monitor and control project work. That's probably what we're doing right now. We're in the process of monitoring and controlling. We're doing a project review. So we're probably doing B. Answer C, develop a change request. Answer D, update the project baseline. We may end up doing both of these, or we may not, but which one would we do first if we were to do both of these? Do we do a change request first, or do we update baselines first? We would do a change request first. We can never update a baseline without an approved change request. So we can never update a baseline without a change request. That's why, since both C and D are here, D must be wrong because C would come first. And so I'm just checking to see where we are. Okay, I'm going to fast forward through a few questions, okay, and get to this slide. So now I'm trying to pull everything together. So for the exam, based on what we covered today, you need to understand the 5 process groups. So first, that there are 5 process groups. You need to know the names of each of the 5 process groups, and you need to know what happens in each of the 5 process groups. You need to know initiating occurs before planning, planning before executing. You need to know which processes are part of which process groups. You need to know the same for the 10 knowledge areas. You need to know the names of the 10 knowledge areas. You need to know what integration means versus what scope means. You need to know which processes fall in which knowledge areas. You need to know the 49 processes. We didn't get to it today, and we didn't plan to. You need to know tools and techniques for each process, outputs for each process, and then lastly, not nearly as important, inputs for each process. For most of us, if we tried to memorize all of this, we would never be able to do it. I'm strongly suggesting you don't try to memorize all of this, that you try to understand it. So I think I call it my process game. It's based on PMBOK table 1-4. So to play the game, you need index cards. And every day that I study, I'd study this for 10 minutes. Never, ever would I study this for an hour. So how would I start? And I know I'm going through this really fast, but in the online material, you can go to the video and walk through this real slow. I would take 5 index cards. On the front of each of the 5, I'd write the name of a process group. And on the back, I would describe what we mean by that process group. So I'd have 5 cards: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. And then on the back of each of those cards, a description of the process group. Then I would take the 5 cards and I would practice sorting them so they look like table 1-4. Again, each day I'd sit down with my 5 cards. I know it sounds corny, but I'd practice sorting them in this sequence. The next thing I would do is I would get 10 index cards and I would write the name of a knowledge area on the front and its description on the back. I'd have integration scope schedule. I'd have 10 of these cards. In each day, first I'd mix all 15 cards together. I'd practice sorting the 5 process groups. Then I'd practice sorting the 10 knowledge areas, just like page 25 of the PMBOK guide. I probably would develop a funny phrase to help me remember the names of the knowledge areas. So I saw snakes crawling quietly round corners, rattling people, and you can see the rest. So this is my phrase. You can use my phrase if you want. I think it would work better if you came up with your own phrase in the beginning, and that helps you sort the knowledge areas. Once that's easy, take 49 cards, the name of the process on the front. I would just leave the back blank, and I would practice sorting the 49 cards into the appropriate process group. Not worry so much about knowledge areas right now. So I know I went through that end pretty quick, but go to my online material and you'll find that early in my material.